Welcome to AfriPlus News Channel. Today's report is one of the most unsettling and politically charged developments in East Africa's recent history. A new and dangerous tension appears to be brewing between Uganda and Kenya, a Cold War that could redefine regional stability and expose deep-seated geopolitical frustrations. President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has made an astonishing statement, warning that wars could break out because, in his words, landlocked Uganda needs the Indian Ocean. His remarks have sent shockwaves across East Africa, raising questions about intent, ambition, and the fragile peace that binds the region. Before we begin, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to AfriPlus News Channel for more timely and analytical updates like this one. President Museveni's declaration that the ocean belongs to me because it is my ocean has drawn both alarm and disbelief. Coming from a leader who has ruled Uganda for nearly 4 decades, such rhetoric carries weight and consequence. It suggests a sense of entitlement beyond geography, a claim not just to access, but to ownership of the Indian Ocean. Is this a symbolic expression of frustration over Uganda's dependence on Kenyan ports, or a calculated message to signal a potential shift in regional power dynamics?
Why don't you see how to unite? Because Uganda, even if you wanted to build a navy, how can you build it? We don't have access to the sea. The political organization in Africa is so irrational. Some of the countries have no access to the sea. For economic purposes, but also for defense purposes, you are stuck. How do I export my products? That's why we have got endless discussion with Kenya, then this one stops, then another one comes, then the railway, the pipeline, the what, we discuss. But that ocean belongs to me. Because where is my ocean? I am entitled to that ocean. In future we are going to have wars.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has downplayed threats of war issued by Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni over access to the port of Mombasa and the Indian Ocean, insisting Museveni is well aware of international territorial laws. But experts warn that his remarks, including a claim that he, quote, owns the Indian Ocean through Kenyan transit, risk straining bilateral relations and the cohesion of the East African community. NTV's Laban Shaban reports.
Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni is seeking another mandate come January 2026. Museveni is eyeing his 8th consecutive term since seizing power in 1986.
Come and you stand around here, I don't have the strength to go and stand there.
It is against this backdrop that the former rebel leader has had tongue-wagging remarks touching on Kenya-Uganda relations and the right to access the Indian Ocean when he was unpacking his manifesto during the weekend.
The political organization in Africa is so irrational. Some of the countries have no access to the sea. For economic purposes, but also for defense purposes, you are stuck. How do I export my products? That's why we have got endless discussion with Kenya, then this one stops, then another one comes, then the railway, the pipeline, the what, we discuss. But that ocean belongs to me. Because where is my ocean? I am entitled to that ocean. In future we are going to have wars.
Again, the timing of his remarks, you know, at this time, there are heated campaigns in Uganda. He is seeking for a re-election, which he calls his last term. And could it be that he's speaking to the Ugandans' ears what they want to hear?
The Kenyan government has responded to Museveni through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
I will not comment much on what His Excellency President Museveni said with respect to our oceans, but I believe very much that he does have a fairly great understanding with respect to the nature of our territory and the nature of our rights with respect to our natural resources, and his right with respect to natural resources within Ugandan territory.
For the President of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, to come out at this particular time to specifically hint of a looming war between Uganda and Kenya, to reclaim, or to claim, let me say to claim what he terms as rightfully belonging to the Ugandans, then it becomes quite absurd, and I would call it deeply dangerous. I don't think President Museveni will want to draw Uganda into yet another war soon. And of course, this time now, an international war away from the internal conflicts in Uganda. And I think Ugandans are also aware of this, and history has it that when Uganda waged war against Tanzania in 2 occasions, it suffered most during the War of Mutukula of around 1969-67, and then the Sabasaba War of 1977.
Security analysts read Museveni's tone as more than frustration, a reflection of landlocked nations' vulnerabilities in a region where maritime control definitely means leverage.
And therefore, the argument perhaps of the landlocked states laying claim that is going against the United Nations law of the sea is subject to rational thinking of many states which are landlocked and have a rallying call. And that is when perhaps it can define conflicts of future. So the future may not be today, may be after a number of years that are calculated in terms of how the landlocked countries are feeling they are oppressed in terms of the existing international law.
Article 125 of United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea gives landlocked Uganda the right to access the sea and transit through Kenya, while recognizing Kenya's sovereignty over its territory. The details of the transit are agreed through bilateral or regional arrangements between the countries. However, Kenya retains the right to protect its legitimate interest as a transit state. In December 2023, Uganda took Kenya to the East African Court of Justice over restrictions that blocked its state oil company from importing fuel through Mombasa. The dispute, stemming from Uganda's dependence on Kenya for 90% of its refined petroleum, was resolved by March 2024, with the first direct shipment arriving in July last year. This highlights Kenya's role as the region's main transit hub.
The intention is not occupation, it's not taking territory. Perhaps the intention for Uganda currently is to have favorable terms of trade.
Museveni's remarks come amid ongoing tensions over cross-border resources, including Migingo Island. During his official visit on 30th July 2025, he and President William Ruto signed a fisheries and aquaculture MOU, a move aimed at sustainable management and joint capacity building, and a step toward resolving long-lasting disputes around the island.
Could this be the beginning of a serious dispute that challenges the existing territorial norms established by international law? Uganda's frustration is understandable from an economic standpoint. Being landlocked, Uganda relies heavily on Kenya's Mombasa port for trade, imports, and exports. Any disruption or tension with Kenya could cripple Uganda's economy. Yet, Museveni's statement goes far beyond economics. It hints at sovereignty claims that international law does not support. Under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, coastal states like Kenya have sovereign rights to their territorial seas and exclusive economic zones, which extend up to 200 nautical miles from their coastline. So what could motivate a long-serving president to make a statement that defies this clear legal framework? Could it be a strategic attempt to rally domestic support amid internal political fatigue, or a way to project strength in an increasingly competitive regional environment? Kenya, on the other hand, has every reason to take this rhetoric seriously. With about 490 kilometers of coastline along the Indian Ocean, Kenya's maritime boundaries are legally recognized. The country has invested heavily in its port infrastructure. From Mombasa to the Lamu Port's South Sudan-Ethiopia transport, Lapset corridor, to strengthen its economic leverage in East Africa. A public threat from a neighboring head of state, implying a possible war over access to the ocean, cannot be ignored. Should Kenya interpret Museveni's words as empty political posturing or as a credible sign of rising regional aggression? What might this mean for East Africa's delicate balance of cooperation and competition? What adds to the tension is the mention of Museveni's son, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, reportedly awaiting a go-ahead to act. This detail has fueled speculation about whether Uganda's military leadership is considering any form of direct action or symbolic show of force. Muhoozi, who has often made controversial statements on social media, once claimed he could capture Nairobi in 2 weeks, a statement that caused diplomatic discomfort between the two nations. Could this new rhetoric from Museveni reignite those sentiments? Or is it part of a father and son strategy to maintain political relevance and test Kenya's response?
Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has stirred tensions with Kenya after asserting that his landlocked country is entitled to access the Indian Ocean and should not be denied that right. His comments, widely interpreted as a veiled warning to Kenya, have triggered strong reactions in both countries, raising concerns about potential impacts on regional trade routes, port access, and East African integration. DW's Frank Iga reports from Uganda.
In an interview aired Tuesday night on state broadcaster UBC from Mbale, President Museveni described the denial of sea routes to inland nations like Uganda as madness. He cautioned that Uganda might one day resort to war to defend what he called its ocean.
That ocean belongs to me. Because where is my ocean? I am entitled to that ocean. In future we are going to have wars. My ocean is the Indian Ocean. No, it belongs really me.
Museveni's remarks have sparked surprise and unease across Uganda. Many observers view his warning as directed at Kenya, a key regional ally and trading partner. While officials have yet to issue any clarification, the comments have fueled speculation about whether Uganda is seeking new maritime access or simply asserting its regional influence. Citizens and analysts alike are questioning how far Museveni is prepared to go to secure what he calls Uganda's right to the ocean. Here are some reactions from the streets of Uganda.
I believe he was slightly aggressive, but his overall point is valid. We are being bullied by nations that have access to the ocean directly. They get to dictate how much taxes we have to pay, and they are strict on us. But we all know, based on these international treaties, that no one has full rights over international water, and we shouldn't have to put up with all that. So I do believe that he is right to claim a part of what belongs to us.
What we can do is to strengthen our political ties, political and economical ties with our neighbors. And we make sure that we access the port whenever we can. But he's also right that it belongs to all of us. No one really has any ownership to that sea port. So I think for him saying that in the future it might be an hindrance and we might perhaps maybe create a war with our neighbors, I don't think that will happen. We just have to work amicably as landlocked countries to make sure that we also get fair access to the seaport, because it belongs to all of us.
From a regional security perspective, this emerging Uganda-Kenya tension could have broader implications for the East African Community, EAC. Both nations are key members of this bloc, which is designed to promote trade integration, peace, and mutual cooperation. If two of its most influential members slide into a Cold War, what happens to the dream of East African unity? Would this rivalry destabilize joint security operations or weaken the regional response to cross-border threats like terrorism and economic crime? Could it even open space for external powers to exploit divisions within East Africa for their own interests? It is also worth considering the timing of Museveni's comments. Uganda is currently navigating economic pressures, youth unemployment, and growing political dissent. Could this sudden shift toward external confrontation be an attempt to redirect national attention away from internal challenges? Throughout history, leaders have often used external tensions to consolidate domestic power. Could this be Museveni's way of reasserting his control and deflecting growing political fatigue within Uganda? Or is it a genuine reflection of long-term frustration over Uganda's dependence on its coastal neighbors for access to global trade routes? Kenya, for its part, faces its own domestic challenges, from inflation to border security and complex relations with neighbors like Somalia, Ethiopia, and South Sudan. A diplomatic confrontation with Uganda would stretch Nairobi's focus and resources even further. Should Kenya respond firmly to defend its sovereignty or pursue quiet diplomacy to de-escalate tensions without giving Museveni's statement more weight than it deserves? What kind of precedent would silence or inaction set in a region where borders and power are constantly tested? As this Cold War rhetoric deepens, regional organizations like the African Union and the East African Community may soon be forced to step in. Both Uganda and Kenya are vital players in regional peacekeeping operations, especially in Somalia and South Sudan. Any breakdown in their relationship could disrupt these missions, threatening the fragile stability of the Horn of Africa. Will regional leaders intervene to calm the situation, or will they remain silent until the political temperature rises beyond control? The international community is likely watching closely as well. Uganda's growing ties with Russia and China, and Kenya's strong relationship with the United States and Western allies could complicate the dynamics further. Could this tension evolve into another proxy struggle where global powers quietly align with their preferred partners in East Africa? Or is this simply a momentary storm of rhetoric that will soon pass without consequence? In conclusion, President Museveni's remarks have opened a new and troubling chapter in East Africa's geopolitics, one where economic dependency, legal boundaries, and historical rivalries intersect in unpredictable ways. Whether this is mere political theater or a prelude to a deeper confrontation, the implications are serious. It challenges the norms of regional diplomacy, tests the resilience of the East African community, and reminds the world that beneath Africa's talk of integration, rivalries still simmer dangerously close to the surface. If you appreciate our in-depth analysis and balanced reporting, please support AfriPlus News Channel by joining our membership and giving us a super thanks. Your support helps us continue delivering professional and analytical updates that matter. Disclaimer: this report is based on verified public statements and available geopolitical information at the time of this broadcast. AfriPlus News Channel does not promote conflict or endorse any political stance. All analysis presented is for educational and informational purposes only, in full compliance with YouTube's community guidelines.